scaling up, choosing a strategy, and doing a deep dive into some property deals. And I'm joined by Patty White. You are a property investor you're based in South Wales. Have I got that right? Yeah. Okay, great. And so we're going to talk about kind of life pre-property, getting into property, and then how you go about building your property business. So can you tell us about, very true of us are born property investors. So what were you doing prior to property?
Of course. So I studied maths and statistics in university, and I was always sort of into that kind of sector. So I became a data analyst and a performance analyst. That was always my sort of specialty. And I mostly worked in housing associations as a performance analyst. So kind of had an idea of the housing sector, but I never really thought at the time to sort of get into property. So that's my background, sort of analysis and statistics.
Okay, so you're kind of in property and very used to crunching numbers. So I'm guessing that bit came very easy later on. So what kicked off property for you? You know, what was the kind of catalyst to saying, actually, this is something we should be doing? And how did you kind of make that decision?
So I have met my partner, now husband, and it was sort of a few years into our relationship, around the COVID time when we kind of, I don't know, we just came across some adverts on social media about property and sort of people doing property. We never really thought about that before. And instead of they kept coming, and we kind of thought, that sounds quite interesting. Why don't we have a look and join a webinar or something? So that's basically how it started. We joined a webinar and we signed up for a course. We kind of, got into that very quickly. And then we decided to just start. So it was during the course that we've purchased our first property. And that's basically how it all started.
And property can be quite confusing at the start as well, I think. What starts out as something that's very straightforward, we're going to buy a house, I'm probably going to add value to it, and then I'm probably going to refinance it, and I'm going to keep it. And then at that point, I think something else happens, and it can be very easy to get distracted by, I should be doing service accommodation, or I should be doing commercial conversions, or whatever it might be. So you decided to get started in a relatively kind of straightforward project. So can you talk us through that? What was it? How did you find it? And what did you talk us through the numbers? And it's going to be your speciality, I'm sure. And what did you envisage with this deal? What was it going to do for you?
Mm-hmm. No, you're absolutely right. We decided to start with the simplest model, because obviously, we thought we've never done it before. So, I think it's the safest way to start. Just very simple. Just start and do something, take action. So it was a single let about an hour away from where we are based in South Wales, in the valleys of South Wales. Actually found it just through estate agents. So just searching online and just contacting an estate agent. But it was really hard. The first deal was definitely the hardest one.
Hard in terms of hard in terms of it's all new, or hard in terms of the project itself was an absolute wreck and needed more work, or hard in terms of everything?
I think in terms of everything. So because we were still, obviously, we're still juggling full-time jobs. We've never done it before. We've never read the solicitor's contracts. We've never done anything like that before. Even though my partner's actually, his background is in constructions, but he's always worked on new build sites. So it's completely different. It just it was more in terms of sort of refurb cost. It took us way longer than we thought. And I think our mistake was trying to do as much as we can ourselves to save money, which in the end, it just doesn't work. But it was all kind of like learning at that time. So I think I'm glad now that it all happened, because we've learned so much through that process. And we actually have like the best tenants in the house, and they're still with us. So
Could you share some of the numbers on that project and what that looked like?
if I remember, we bought it for 45,000. So it was definitely the cheapest house we've ever bought. The refurb was around, at the time, that was still before that spike. So it was quite cheap, like in comparison to what they are right now. I think we spent about 16. And we were hoping for end value to be about 65,000, but it was 75. It was really, really good deal. We've had all our money back in less than 2 years. The rent just keeps going up in our property, and we're still on the same fixed rate. We don't have a lot of maintenance on there because obviously it was a full refurb. And the tenants are lovely. So it turned out to be good, but there was lots of tears, arguments throughout that process. It was hard.
So the lessons learned from that one are, I guess one of them is, let's not do the work ourselves. It takes longer. It's a false economy in terms of trying to save the money. So since then, I guess you've kind of brought in build teams, contractors that you know and can trust, and to take on those projects. For the property to kind of deliver a return that means you get all of your money back out within 2 years is a fantastic return on it. And the really nosy bit, did you start out with a kind of huge pot of cash saying, well, we're going to be able to buy 20 of these things or whatever, or where do you come in with this?
I feel like I should just also mention, we actually found quite of like a sweet spot with regards to the build team. So now my partner project manages it, as opposed to just purely using a separate construction team. But he project manages the trades, but we try not to do anything ourselves and sort of spend our time on that, if that makes sense. Yeah, the funding. So we sort of followed what the property course, obviously, I think most of them teach the same thing, like you can use other people's money. And to be fair, they are right. I think it's just at the beginning, you kind of think like, oh, who would give me money? Why would they give me any money? Like, I'm only just starting out. I'm not an experienced person, but you'd be surprised actually how just by asking friends and family, how you can just raise enough to just get started. So that's what we did. We've had just loan agreements with a few of our friends and family members. So it was kind of like small amounts because, but sort of it was enough to sort of buy the first deal.
Okay, and with any money that's kind of left in the project, is that just paid back to investors over a period of time, or do they have an equity stake in the project?
So that part was ours, yeah. So we've had a little bit of our cash in that deal.
Sure. Okay. So from deal number one, a few lessons learned. It's gone pretty well. It ticks the boxes in terms of making a good cash flow, solid cash flow each month. Great tenants. It's got equity from kind of day one once you finish the refurb, and low maintenance, it sounds like, in terms of happy tenants, don't need a lot of very few maintenance issues. So at that point, what's the conversation? Is it, let's do more of these, or is it, hey, we've learned this because this was dipping our toe in the water at the kind of lower risk strategy, now let's go and do something kind of much bigger? What are the conversations that you're having at that point?
At that point, we wanted to do more of these, and we did. We found another project. The first one took us a long time, I think almost a year. So we didn't really want to look for any more because it was too stressful. But then after that, we found another project. In terms of refurb, it was much easier. I think we've learned, again, like I think you always learn something new at different stages. So I think that one, we've applied for refinance once it was finished, and there was like a delay on fitting the carpet, I think. So the valuer came in, everything was done, everything was fine apart from the carpets, and they downvalued us by, I think, 10 or 15K, which obviously doesn't sound like a lot, but indeed the figures that sort of in South Wales, that's quite a lot. And we were kind of like shocked by that. And we didn't know what to do. But we thought, okay, you know what, let's just fit the carpets and try again. Just the carpets, which is like the cheapest part of the renovation. And we got the value that we wanted, which is really kind of silly.
With the same lender?
Everything. It was this different lender, but the same surveyor.
The same surveyor valued your carpets
even the same person.
At £15,000.
Yes, which is the carpet fit is still laughing. He's making us the most money.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like the stressful part of that one was the refinance, because I think when you get the first downval, that is it's quite distressing. Yeah, I think
it's always interesting kind of assessing the end value of a property when you're kind of looking at a project at the outset. How did you get kind of comfortable with, we think it's going to be worth this? Was that, were there lots of comparables locally? Was it with discussion with local agents? How do you get comfortable with that end valuation number?
Yeah, it's looking old. Well, it's looking at the sold properties, but then sort of like we look at the quarter-mile radius. Obviously, you kind of have to have some local knowledge as well, because you could be sometimes looking at a quarter mile radius, but there could be a street that's just not as desirable, and you just need to kind of know that. So it's that, also checking with these local agents. We only recently started doing, and we're also looking at the sold subject to contract, because they're sort of more up-to-date figures, and trying to contact this agent and find out obviously what they really sold for. Not everyone's willing to share, but it's just different sort of sources. And I think more you do that and more you get to know the area, it gets easier as well. So you sort of know sometimes before you even check. So it's almost like you have an idea and then you just check and make sure that you've got some comparables.
Okay, great. And can you tell us a little bit about finding the projects as well? Because it sounds like most of the houses that you've bought need substantial work and offer the opportunity for a significant uplift in value. How do you go about communicating that to the agents? Have you got any kind of tips and tricks as to, being served, here's a great potential property rather than here's just another property that's for sale?
Southwest is actually quite competitive right now, and a lot of people do what we do. Like people say, like, just make connections with the agents, make relationships with the agents. I think because there's so many people, it's really hard, because like everyone wants to have relationships with the agents. So for us, it's still just online platforms, and the most deals actually we're getting from follow-ups. So that's where so it's never sort of at the beginning where you sort of offer, it's when they fall through. And then we've got a good system with the following up, and that's sort of how we get them, I think, because obviously then you've got like a distressed seller, they just get annoyed and they just want a, quick sale. And I usually actually call, because I'm doing it quite frequently, before that property even goes back on the market. And that's sort of the good time to sort of just say, yeah, we're still interested.
Okay, so that persistence and systemization of following up with properties which have sold, but as we know, lots of them fall out of bed. Lots of sales don't actually end up going through. Okay, great advice there. So, you mentioned in some of your messages as well that there was a period of this kind of shiny penny syndrome of saying, we can do this. We know we can do this. But other people seem to be doing stuff which is more, exciting or, going to get us towards the end goal faster, whatever it might be. And it suggested in your messages that you kind of fell foul of that for a little while. Tell us a little bit about that and how you overcame that.
Yes, I think the more networking we did with other property investors and sort of learning about the things that they do, it just sounded so exciting. And it just, exactly what you said, like sounded like if we did that, we definitely will reach our goal faster, and it's more exciting. It will make us more money quicker, and it will just all be easier. But that was not the case at all. We kind of started researching different strategies, and even like we actually paid for courses for different strategies as well. And we didn't get us anywhere at all. Over a year, we just didn't even do anything. We just kind of stopped completely. And
do you look at the missed opportunities in the properties you could have bought by
100%.
following the same follow?
It was just wasted time, effort, energy, and money. Definitely should have just stick to what we knew. Yeah. Lessons learned there.
And so how did you overcome that? What was the kind of secret to saying, actually, do you know what? We know what we're doing. Let's refocus on that.
I have listened to presentation done by Jackie Toms. It was like an online networking event. And I think I knew then I want to work with her. I made that decision, like she's going to be the person that will fix that issue for us. And yeah, we started working with Jackie, Dave, and Dom. We joined the mentorship program. And the first thing she was, you need to focus on one strategy, one model. You just pick one and focus on it. And you just don't even look at anything else. And that's basically what it was. As simple as.
Yeah, she is amazing at getting you to focus. Yeah. Definitely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're great. They're great people. They're a great teams.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, where are you and your husband now? Are you full-time in property? Are you still working on the kind of data analyst side of things? Is he still on the new build sites, or what does that look like for you guys now?
So I have now left my day job in September, actually, this year. So I'm now full-time in property. My husband is still working on new builds, but he's trying to sort of slowly move away and reduce his time. He can do that because he's self-employed, so it's not as hard. Just it's going to be more of a gradual process as opposed to just jumping into property straight away. Yeah, that's where we are.
And how are you finding kind of life as a full-time property investor rather than juggling it alongside the corporate life? Do you miss the social aspects of, a job and the structure?
I was really struggling the first month. There was no structure. I think I tried to sort of create structure for myself, but it just wasn't working. Only recently I finally just found that sweet spot, and I'm trying to stick to sort of like my default week. So I've created a default week and I'm just trying to stick to it, and it works much better. The social side, I think it's very similar to what it was before. So because I was working from home anyway, it was just kind of like online meetings, which is what I've got right now as well. So there's no difference there. But yeah, it's just that I think there is a danger when you're sort of working for yourself that you just don't really stop. You can just carry on. And that's what I was doing. I would just work till evenings. And I was just really exhausted because I just didn't want to stop. Because there's always something else to do. You just have to have that structure because otherwise you'll just burn out. So yeah, I've learned that now, and I'm trying to be more rigid with that.
Okay, brilliant. And so what does the kind of size and shape of the portfolio look like now? And do you have a kind of financial goal that you're working towards for you both to have that kind of financial freedom and, for your husband to be able to walk away from the day job? So where are you now, and where's the kind of the first goal to get you there?
So right now we've got the two projects we did in our own limited company. We've got another 4 which we purchased with a joint venture partner, because we started working with joint venture partners, and this is kind of the way we're operating now. We're purchasing another 2 of the same joint venture partner, and we're purchasing another 1 with another joint venture partner. So when these are done, it should be roughly 9 properties. Forgot your second question.
Yeah, so the question was,
Goal.
is there a kind of financial goal or goal in terms of an initial goal in terms of the portfolio to say, well, when we get to this point, that gives us both kind of time and freedom. What does that look like? And then I'm interested to know what next, where you go from there.
So for us, it's mostly time freedom. I think that's our time and location freedom. That's sort of more important to us than financial freedom. But obviously financial freedom allows you to have time and location freedom. So it's all linked together anyway. We'd like to build a business in a way that it's kind of fully automated and doesn't require us to sort of oversee things, because we'd like to move abroad. We actually would like to move to Italy. That's sort of our goal. The way we sort of, as I mentioned, we sort of working with joint venture partners, and we don't want to work with a very large number of partners. It's going to be a number of people who want to build a portfolio, don't necessarily have the time to do that. So the way we structure it is they provide the capital and we do all the work. The agreement we have with them is we build a portfolio for 5 years. And then we obviously just do the second refinances to pull all the money out and just sort of enjoy that portfolio and basically just live from the portfolio, I guess. So that's sort of. I'm
interested to hear about kind of what life in Italy will be like, because we all need a really compelling reason why we do this. So, and it looks like you have a really interesting goal that you're working towards there. So where will you be, and what will life look like when you're in Italy?
So we actually like the middle part of Italy the most. We got married in a region called Marche, and we love that region. So it would be either probably that or Umbria potentially, which is the sort of nearby region. We would love to just live in like a small authentic villa. We just like the simple, quiet, don't need any sort of like busyness of any big cities. Like we just like the quiet, and just want to have a family at some point as well. So just want to enjoy life with our family, and yeah, that's what we see for ourselves.
Well, it sounds amazing, and it sounds like you're on you're a good way there. So do you have a timeline that you're working towards where you could see that happening?
Yes, we think it's going to be 4 years,
Okay.
4 years from now. We said
Brilliant.
5 years a year ago, so it has to be 4 years now.
Exactly. And so the strategy will remain the same largely, I guess. You're concentrating on the area that you know, with the properties that you know you will deliver the results you're looking for. Do you worry about the kind of shiny penny syndrome creeping in again? Or do you think that's it now? We're pretty much laser focused on where we need to be?
No, I think we're immune to that now, and we're hearing great. Even people sometimes even try to convince us to do other strategies at networking events. I don't know why. Like they're not really benefiting from it. It's just no. We just always say no. We've learned that now. I think if we ever change, it would probably be potentially maybe blocks or flats. So we see it kind of as a singlets on like a
Yeah, but
little
doing
bigger scale.
four at a
Just,
time or
yeah, at the
six at a
time,
time rather
exactly.
than
We just don't like the stress of of the other strategies when the planning involved, councils are involved, building regulations, and we just don't like that part. And there are delays, obviously, because of that, whereas we can sort of do everything quite quickly now. It's just so much simpler. And I think if you just do it with a certain volume, the results are probably very similar anyways. We're
Okay.
quite
And
solid on.
so for people who might be reading this in YPM magazine or online or listening to this or watching this, who maybe are nearer the start of their journey, could you share any, perhaps some mistakes you've made along the way, which you would encourage them to avoid, or lessons that you've learned? So for anyone starting out, it gives them some real pointers to avoid doing those things, or any advice on, what they definitely should be doing.
I think there's probably quite common thing at the beginning is for people to just sort of gain all the knowledge and they just don't really do anything about it. So I think step one would be actually take action. It doesn't need to be perfect. It will never be perfect the first time, but just something, anything. Do your first deal won't be great, or it might be okay, but it doesn't matter as long as you kind of like just learn and do it, because you learn from experience the most. So that would be probably the first thing. The second thing is definitely the focus on one strategy and try to stay away from the shiny penny syndrome, because that would just slow down your whole progress. I think that would be the first two tips. That's maybe also just look through the solicitor's sort of documents when you purchase as well. So actually our first property was a flying freehold, which we didn't know. So we just omitted that part from the documents. And it was not all lenders like flying freehold. So it was a bit of a challenge to find a lender, but yeah, just sort of be careful, take your time.
Okay. And it sounds like you definitely were, your first deal was, okay, this one is going to be relatively low risk. We're not taking on something massive where if it goes wrong, it's going to financially just kind of wipe us out forever. It's relatively easy to understand the risks and mitigate them in a deal of that type and size. Maybe that's a good way for people to start as well.
I think you're right there. So I guess maybe even if someone is set on like a bigger strategy, it would be good to start small, just to sort of go through the process and then focus on like a bigger complex strategy. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, fantastic. Well, look, thank you so much for sharing this with us today at YPM. We couldn't do what we do without people like yourselves sharing the kind of real life stories about property investing and the challenges along the way. And I hope you don't mind me saying it, another example of ordinary people achieving extraordinary things in property and creating that kind of time, freedom and choice that I think we all want, isn't it? I think it's rarely about the kind of supercar and the private jet stuff. I think it's about time and freedom.
Definitely.
For anybody maybe looking to take the next step and maybe interested in connecting with you, is there somewhere that we can send them to connect?
Yes, we are on social media platforms, on Instagram under White Property Line, my Facebook as well, Patrycja White, as well as LinkedIn under the same name. And obviously we've got an email address, which is info@whitepropertyline.com. You can just reach out to us however you like. Always happy to chat.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Look, thanks so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to catching up with you soon. Maybe when you're just a little bit nearer, maybe you're in Italy at that point. Maybe that timeline's been shrunk. You're there. It's not 4 years. Maybe it's 2 or 3 or whatever. But we really look forward to that. So thank you.
Learn from people who've been there and done it. Real investors, real lessons. YPN.plus.